Everyone, how's it going? So I come to you with a tag, not for Tag Tuesday, but for Tag Wednesday, apparently. This is just a fun little tag that I had a lot of fun putting my answers together for. It was created by a new booktuber, very new booktuber, Joey, over at Game of Authors, who decided to make his very first booktube video an original tag, which is kind of ambitious. I kind of like that. But anyway, I just got done watching his original video, and he looks like a great new channel, so I definitely recommend you all go subscribe to him. And I was tagged by Brian over at Bookish, who also obviously has a wonderful channel, and I'll leave a link to his video as well. So this is the I love the book, I love the movie tag, and this is just where you take 10 movies that you've loved that are based on books, where you love both the movie and the book, and you rank them. And I saw Jason of Old Books Chapter and Verse and Kelly of Books I'm Not Reading both do this tag, and both not rank their videos, and then Brian kind of scolded them both for not ranking their videos. And I am actually going to rank mine as well, like Brian and like Joey. So, starting with number 10, which is The Lion King, directed by Roger Allers and Rob Minkoff. The Lion King came out the year that I was born, actually, and it's kind of made a joke of the fact that it was based on Hamlet, technically. I mean, you have the father being killed by the uncle, you have the father returning as a ghost and telling the son to get revenge, you have the son being indecisive, although not quite as indecisive as Hamlet was. You have a bit of a tumultuous relationship between the main protagonist and his supposed love interest. You have the pompous courtier in the form of Zazu, who probably takes a note from Polonius. And yeah, I love The Lion King so much. It's not actually my favorite Disney movie. My favorite Disney movie is actually The Little Mermaid, but it's just a testament to how much I loved 90s Disney movies that The Lion King is still one that I absolutely adore. So, yeah, first off would definitely be The Lion King, which comes from Hamlet by Shakespeare, which obviously I also love. Number 9, we're sticking with Shakespeare adaptations. So, number 9 is Ran, directed by Akira Kurosawa. And I believe Ran is a word that translates as chaos, or something like that. But it is an adaptation of King Lear, and it takes King Lear and sets it in feudal Japan. And the film is very, very, very long, possibly too long, but King Lear is also a very long play, so in its defense. But it is one of the most powerful films I've ever seen, especially the very last image in it, of a Buddha, an image of the Buddha that had just fallen onto the ground by accident, has stuck with me ever since I saw it. And I have to say that I think that if I were to watch Ran more times than I have, it would probably creep higher on this list. I've only seen it once, which is the only reason it's so low. The only minor criticism would be that it's possibly a bit long, but it's definitely worth that, and I think it does hold your attention pretty well for that whole time too, but it's Akira Kurosawa's last film, and he really went out with a bang, I gotta tell you. So, yeah, that's number 9. Number 8, Cloud Atlas. The film is directed by Lena and Lily Wachowski and Tom Tykwer, and the novel that it's based on is by David Mitchell. Cloud Atlas, the film almost brought me to tears when I saw it for the second time. It took me 3 times to really fall in love with the film, Cloud Atlas. Thankfully, I had a friend who was obsessed with the film, so I got to watch it several times. So I had the first time I watched it, I was kind of baffled by it, because the film is told in a more non-linear fashion than the book, although the book is also told in a very non-linear fashion. So the first time I was just sort of not able to tell what even was going on, but as I, sort of figured things out over the course of watching it a few more times, just the stories came to have this huge impact on me. And yeah, I love both the book and the film. I need to reread the book though, so again, probably like Ron is why this is a bit lower down. It's because I've only read the book once, and my memory of it is hazy, even though I love the film. Number 7, is probably the closest thing to being a cheat on this list. This is Alexander, directed by Oliver Stone, and this technically is not an adaptation. However, any retelling of the Alexander story is going to take a lot from Plutarch's biography of Alexander the Great, which I also thoroughly enjoyed. And his biography of Alexander the Great is relatively short, but it is often published as a volume on its own. I have seen that happen. And it is great. And it's the source for a lot of... The Plutarch's life is the source for a lot of the sort of mythology about Alexander the Great that has grown up around him. And Oliver Stone's film absolutely plays into that mythology. So I think that this is fair enough. But I love the film. It has Anthony Hopkins in it, and it has Colin Farrell as Alexander the Great. It has Angelina Jolie as his mother, Olympias. And the film got terrible reviews and bombed at the box office, but I've always absolutely loved it. It's just really a spectacle. I mean, it's like 3 hours long, and it's just a spectacle. There's not all that much that's terribly deep to it, but that's fine when it's as entertaining as a movie as it is. So, yeah. Number 6, this may be a controversial choice. This is Troy, directed by Wolfgang Petersen and David Benioff. Yes, it is the David Benioff from Game of Thrones. So this is ostensibly an adaptation of Homer's Iliad. And a lot of Homer purists are going to be railing against me in the comments for praising this film, because it is not anywhere close to being a faithful adaptation of the Iliad. I think that the people who made the film just wanted to make a gritty action film, and that was that. And as that and nothing more, I think it's pretty good. It does in a few instances, I think, sort of engage with the themes that are in the Iliad, but only very lightly and loosely. And I do sort of criticize the film for sort of skirting over the homoerotic undertones of Achilles' and Patroclus' relationship, because they made Achilles and Patroclus cousins, which is interesting. But they sort of skirted over that aspect of the story, which I have to admit irritates me slightly, but not that much. But it's an enjoyable film. I really recommend you go see it. But don't watch it hoping to, get a real sense of what the Iliad is about. So, yeah. Number 5 is perhaps another cheat. This is The Prince of Egypt, directed by Brenda Chapman, Steve Hickner, and Simon Wells. This is a musical. It's an animated film, and it's based on the Book of Exodus from the Bible. The main character is Moses. The main antagonist is Ramses II. It has a really great cast. It has Patrick Stewart, has Helen Mirren, and others. And just great music, a great story, great character development, I think. And the Book of Exodus may not be my favorite book in the Bible. I do really like the first third that actually covers the story aspects of the book that are in the film. But the Bible in general is definitely one of my favorite books. I mean, I may be an atheist who has can count on one hand the number of times that he's been to church, but the Bible has some of my favorite stories and some really great poetry. So, yeah, that would definitely qualify here. Number 4, perhaps another controversial pick. This is Frank Herbert's Dune. Not the adaptation by David Lynch, but the 2000 sci-fi miniseries directed by John Harrison. This is a 3-part miniseries. It's like 6 hours long or something like that, or maybe like 5.5 hours long. It can be a little corny. The special effects are really out of date by now. The acting can be slightly cheesy, but it does have William Hurt. It has Ian McNeice, who does a wonderful, in my opinion, a wonderful portrayal of the Baron Harkonnen. Has Saskia Reeves as Lady Jessica, and it has Julie Howe, I can't remember her name now, but the actress who plays the Princess Irulan is also, I think, excellent. So there is some really good acting, there is also some acting that's not so great, and again, some of the special effects are really corny, but it's, again, like Alexander, it's just a great spectacle. And that's what I love it as. It will be interesting to see how Denis Villeneuve's adaptation of Dune ends up stacking up to this one, at least in my own estimation, since most people don't like the sci-fi miniseries like at all. It'll be interesting to see how that one stacks up for me. But yeah, that one had to be here because, and it was also, the sci-fi miniseries was also my first exposure to the story of Dune. I watched it many, many times before I ever read the book. Yeah, there's that as well. Number 3, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, directed by Chris Columbus. This actually probably isn't necessarily my favorite of the movies. I think the Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire would probably win out as my favorite of the movies. But I prefer the book, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. And if I were ranking the 7 Harry Potter films, then the Goblet of Fire and the Sorcerer's Stone would probably either be tied for number 1, or given any day you asked me, I could put one or the other as number 1. But what I love about the movie, The Sorcerer's Stone, is, you know, you have this sort of childlike wonder of entering this world. You have the Richard Harris Dumbledore, who I much prefer to the whatever the name of the actor who took over after he died, played Dumbledore. You have the John Williams score. I love John Williams. So there's just a lot to like about that film that there isn't necessarily to like about the later films, in my opinion. I also think there's a kind of earthiness to the way that Hogwarts is portrayed in that film that it kind of loses over the course of the movies. And also the book has a lot of those same qualities, you know, that childlike wonder at the new world and such. So yeah, there's Harry Potter. That's my number 3. Number 2 is Brokeback Mountain, directed by Ang Lee, based on the short story of the same name by Annie Proulx. I love them both. Brokeback Mountain, I again saw Brokeback Mountain before I read the short story, and it absolutely broke my heart when I first saw it. Yeah, so it had to be on the list. And I love the story as well. They both kind of do different aspects of the story differently, I think. And so I love them both for sort of different reasons, but they're both equal in my own... Well, actually, if I were to rank the short story against the film, I would probably choose the film over the short story, but I love them both. Alright, and then number 1, you know, this is probably my most basic bitch choice, but it had to be the number 1, and it's The Lord of the Rings, directed by Peter Jackson, the book, obviously, by J.R.R. Tolkien. I do consider The Lord of the Rings itself as one novel, because that's how Tolkien wrote it. It was only published in 3 installments because of a shortage of paper at the time, because of the Second World War had just ended. But anyway, I mean, again, it's just spectacle, really. I mean, no, it's not just spectacle. There's also great character development and some really good acting. But if I had to pick one of the Lord of the Rings film as my favorite, it would be the first one, The Fellowship of the Ring. Just because, and I think I'm paraphrasing Brian when I say this, just because I think it's primarily character-driven, as opposed to the other movies, which have a lot more spectacle, arguably empty spectacle, but really well-done spectacle. Because there aren't any huge battles in it. It's largely just setting up the story. There's this real, like, sense of, like, menace and darkness and broodiness to the first one that there isn't in the others, because you don't see Sauron for that long, you don't see gigantic armies marching, you don't see widespread destruction, you just get small little hints of those things. And then you have the ring wraiths, who are just so creepishly done in the best way possible in that first film. Anyway, yeah, that had to be number 1. So those are 10 movies that I loved and books that I love. I'm just going to tag one person because I'm not sure which of my BookTube friends is into, like, film adaptations. But I'm going to tag James over at The Serial Reader. James is a new channel to me. He's a really, really smart guy. He talks about books, and even if there are books I'm not all that interested in, I will really enjoy his commentary. He reads classics, poetry, nonfiction, all sorts of heady stuff, which is totally my jam. And James, don't feel any pressure to do this tag if you're not big on films, but I would love to hear your answers if you want to do it. So anyway, thank you to Joey for creating the tag, and thank you to Brian for tagging me, and thank you all for watching. I look forward to your comments, and I will talk to you all later today. Bye, guys.